A caregiver. Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teal. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teal, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Caregiver Solution Info Show. I'm so glad you could join us today, whether you're on iHeartRadio, local Southeast Florida, AM and FM, or joining us on your smartphone or your computer, watching us live. I'm glad that you're here. Every Tuesday at 6 o'clock, we provide this information for caregivers and other professionals that want to learn more about caregiving, and especially when it comes to Alzheimer's and dementia. And this show has been in existence for about 6 years, and we have a lot of people that just have learned so much because, as you know, caregiving is very difficult. It's something that you don't necessarily know about when you have to be thrown into the throes of caregiving, unless perhaps you grew up in a large extended family and you had your grandparents or your great grandparents living with you and you were younger and you had to help take care of grandma and grandpa, and that was part of caregiving. And today caregiving is very prevalent. There's so many people out there that become caregivers every single day, especially with the numbers rising in dementia. A lot of people that even don't have dementia need the help because they can't care for themselves. So this is what this show is all about. We interview people that are experts in their field, including doctors and social workers, a lot of geriatric care managers, some scientists even talking about the new breakthroughs in science that's helping to find a cure for these different types of diseases that we're dealing with. When it comes to memory loss, we talk to caregivers. A caregiver can learn so much from another caregiver because they're walking in their shoes or they have walked in those shoes. And so this show is for educational purposes to help you to learn, to give you great advice, and so that you can be a better caregiver and hopefully a less stressed out caregiver. So today we're going to be talking about something a little different that maybe sometimes if you're a new caregiver, you might not even have thought about, that legal issues can surround caregiving. And when we talk about legal issues, we're talking about things that are very important going forward in caregiving. There's so much to learn about caregiving, and the legal issues are paramount. Did you ever think about, if I'm taking care of someone, what happens to me if I can't do it, if I pass away first? We don't have any children. There's no other family. Who's going to step up? What's going to happen to my loved one? Who's going to make all of these decisions? And then the other part that you might think about, what if this caregiving lasts 10, 20 years? What if I run out of money? How do I pay for this? Where does the money come from? I can't use up all my money because I need to live too. So these are questions that keep caregivers up at night sometimes, thinking about the what ifs and what do I do and how do I know? So today we're going to be talking about those issues, and we have two wonderful experts that are joining us today. They're going to be so helpful in addressing all of these questions. So I'm very happy to have my two guests with me, and both of them are in the field related to caregiving because they have so much experience, both of them over 25 years, helping families, helping seniors, counseling, talking with them, knowing the ins and outs and the do's and the don'ts of these issues. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you to Pam Weiner, PhD, Dr. Pam, and she has her PhD in social welfare, and she is actually a registered guardian and the director of the guardianship program at the Alpert Jewish Family Services of Palm Beach County, and they service children, adults, seniors, and people with disabilities. And she's joining us from her home office. And hi, Pam. Welcome to the Caregiving Solution Info Show. Also with me today is Amy Dow, Esquire. Amy Dow is an elder attorney. She works with Elder Needs Law Firm. She's a partner there. She specializes in Medicaid planning, estate planning, probate, and guardianship. And today her special topic is going to be elder law planning and Medicaid planning. So welcome, Amy. So glad to have both of you here today. You know, you both have different fields, one more of the guardian social work field, the other one more of the law, the elder law field, but yet you're very connected in many, many ways. And I know that you all work together, have worked in the past and work together now to help a lot of families. So this is going to be an awesome interactive conversation today with helping people to understand what they need to know when it comes to elder care and planning for being a caregiver. So all of that being said, Amy, I'd like to start off with you first because being in the law field, you help people, and there's something that all people, not just caregivers, but all people probably need to plan for to in their life, you know, just from everything about what do I do when I can't make my own decisions to what do I want to do if I die. And these are long range plans. But talk about the basics, what people really need to have to start off with, and that would apply to just everybody.
Yes, thank you. So the key that you said is everybody. And the truth is that everybody, meaning every adult, 18 years and older, should have a very good and complete set of what we call advance directives. And those are the very important documents like a power of attorney or a healthcare surrogate designation, where basically a person, the principal, names somebody that they want to be able to have the authority to help make decisions for them if they can't. And so that starts even when someone is 18. Like I said, if you have children that are in college or whatever, they are now adults. And so if you want access to any of their medical records or anything else, or want to help them with banking, they need to have power of attorney or healthcare surrogate. The same thing for our seniors and our aging population. If you want your caregiver to have the authority to do banking for you or to make medical decisions for you, you need to give them the legal authority through the set of advance directives. You know, I speak to a lot of people along the way who will say, oh, that's okay. I don't need those documents. My son knows what I want, or my wife knows what I want. And what we're really here to talk about, and especially with Pam as well, is that if it's not done properly according to the legal requirements, having your son know what you want isn't really going to help. And that's where Pam would come in a guardianship situation if the documents are not in place.
Great. So you mentioned power of attorney, and that is making financial decisions, and healthcare surrogate is more of healthcare decisions, right?
Yes, and I'd like to just underscore, because this is what we find a lot of people are afraid of. It does give the authority to make these decisions, but what people should need to understand is that as long as you, the individual, have the capacity to make those decisions, you still can. signing these documents doesn't mean you're giving away your ability to make these choices. You're just sort of adding someone on the team to help you when you can't.
Well, I'm really glad that you made that distinction, because a lot of seniors think that, gee, if I give someone my power, they're going to take over. I don't want them to know everything. I still want to make my own decisions. So thank you for making that distinction, because I think a lot of people kind of are confused about that. But let's talk about when someone does not ever execute a durable power of attorney to let someone make decisions for them, or healthcare surrogate to make those healthcare decisions. And now there's no one left to do it because they have maybe no children, they have no buddy that they've trusted that could step up to the plate because it's not in writing. What happens when someone is alone, they're incapacitated, they haven't come to see you to draw up their advance directives, and they need help? What happens?
I guess
That's
that
really
one was
the
for
question.
me. Amy, or for me?
Well, Amy is the one. She's going to say, "Gee, now you need guardianship," and she's probably going to say, "You need to call Pam," right? Because Pam's the expert when it comes to guardianship. So, Pam, step in here and talk about what guardianship is and why it is the next step if someone doesn't have all their legal documents in place and they need help. Talk about guardianship.
I think it's really important to saying that guardianship is a last resort. Courts and humanity want to find restrictive options possible for a person. And even if someone is in stages of dementia, they may be able to exit, and we'll let Amy address that in a moment. So even if there's no one else around, if I am slipping a little bit, but still am somewhat oriented to person and place, etc., I say, I love my neighbor across the street, and she's the one I want, and not my third cousin, grandma, or something. But guardianship is an adjudication, a legal process that really takes rights away from somebody who has lost the ability to execute those rights himself or herself, or who is unable to express wishes. And those rights, many of those rights that are delegated to a guardian. And it is the family that would have the first crack at becoming the guardian. A professional isn't sought initially. If there is care, safe, loving family. And the problems arise when a professional is brought in, generally speaking. You don't want to spend fast, so I kind of hedge it like that. If families agree, if there are 3 children even, and one wants to place mom in ALF in New Jersey, and one wants her to stay in her house, and one needs 24-hour care at home than alone at home, and they can't agree, then this whole adjudication process gets complicated. And in some cases, there is mediation that can help. If it doesn't help, that's where a professional guardian is sought, and the guardian will handle personal matters as well as matters very often.
Well, it sounds like it's complicated, and it sounds like that's something that you've always said you want to try to avoid guardianship if all possible. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Pam's going to share with us the pros and cons of guardianship. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on caregiversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Joining me today on Caregiver Solution Info Show is Pam Weiner, PhD, and she's got her doctorate in social welfare, and she's currently the director of the guardianship program at Alpert Jewish Family Services in Palm Beach County, and also Amy Dow. Amy is an attorney with the Elder Needs Law Firm. They specialize in Medicaid planning, estate planning, probate, guardianship, and I'm so happy to have both of you here. We're talking about legal issues when it comes to caregiving, caring for someone, when somebody needs to set up their legal documents, why they need to set them up, and what happens if they don't set them up. So we're talking to you, Pam, about what happens when someone does not have in their portfolio the legal documents that everybody, like Amy said, everybody needs. They need a healthcare surrogate. They need a power of attorney, a durable power of attorney, a living will. So it comes to guardianship, and you mentioned that sometimes it has to go to court, right? It's a legal process. So when it goes to court because they don't have the other forms, and now you're forced into guardianship, what's the process? I mean, is it something quick and easy, or is it drawn out? Is it complicated? Is there a typical process for guardianship?
There are also emergency processes. So a typical process is that someone is very concerned about someone else, and they have to engage an attorney. It is a legal process, and petition that someone and allege that someone is incapacitated and needs a guardian. And remember, this is with having changed and someone that you can rely on, that attorney does for you. So the process is you get evaluated if you're incapacitated by three community. They make recommendations to a judge. There's a hearing. You signed if you're alleged incapacitated, and it represents you. So if you're really opposed to the guardianship or have made other arrangements that just nobody knows about, you can express that on your behalf. And the family or clergy, neighbor, or whoever it is that did the petition is going to express his or her concerns in the court. And again, they're going to speak to whatever family they can find to see if they want to serve. They're able to, and not excluded a factor or other, like being a felon, and then, or too far away. And then you get assigned professional guardian either randomly or because the family member says, forget it, I can't do it, but I want Jewish Family Service to do it, or this person or that person. But a stranger shows up. And I want to emphasize that when you do your documents in advance, you're going to choose someone who knows you and loves you. And think of all the groundwork that we have to do as a professional, PhD, no PhD, to get to know somebody and try to figure out what's them and who they really are and what quality really means to them. And they might be somewhere on that dementia spectrum where it's less and less possible for them to really share that with you. And you have to work very hard in a collaborative way with them to get them what they need and get them what they want, where you're just walking in on someone and they're 80 years old, let's say. You have the whole history there that you're missing. And that's why it's so important for healthcare issues, for social issues, for what your priorities are, what you think is really, not just to have those conversations with the people around you, designate someone. We are very willing to do that hard and try very hard to understand you, but especially when it comes to an Alzheimer's patient, sometimes we're sympathetically flying by the seat of our pants.
I understand. It gets very tough, very complicated when you have that memory loss in there, and people's personalities can even change, and people with dementia can become paranoid about things, and they think people are stealing from them, and very difficult situation. Which I want to go back to you, Amy. You have quite a bit of experience, not only in law but in counseling. You studied counseling, and I can just imagine how beneficial that education and counseling has helped you in your practice when you're in front of families and you have a family that maybe they have, 6 different children and they're trying to decide which one is going to be in charge of what. And maybe they're all arguing. And I'm sure you've had situations in your office. How does your counseling education and experience help with helping the families determine to figure all that out?
Well, thank you for asking that. A lot of people sort of just kind of glide by the fact that I also have that as a background, and I'm very proud of that. And I feel, especially in the elder law arena, having the insight about how really to listen to people and to talk to people that you learn so much about in a counseling program really helps, because we're not just drafting contracts. We're dealing with real families with real issues, and oftentimes are in crisis mode and just don't know where to turn. So I look forward to being able to be that person to usually just sort of get them settled in and not so afraid, and let them know that there's a path. And there are many times when families don't agree, but in my personal experience, I have found more times than not they do agree. And so I'm very grateful that I've had that. If they don't, there's only so much we can do in terms of trying to talk through their options. And what we want to do really is remind them that the client is the person that needs the care. And we really have to do what's in their best interest and how we can serve them. So if there's a local, sometimes we just look for different reasons why one child may be a little bit better than the other and try to guide a good discussion. But the other piece, if I can just go back for just a moment, is we keep talking about capacity and decisions. And I think it's really important to underscore the definitions of those words when we have these conversations. That capacity means different things in different situations. So what we're looking at here, when we're trying to decide if somebody needs to go forward with a guardianship and have somebody step in, is somebody who cannot really make decisions on their own. The distinction, though, and this is what people find so hard to believe, is people are allowed to make bad decisions. And that's another thing we come up against with family members, where you get calls from the children that come visiting from up north. They come down, they see mom and dad, and all of a sudden they realize mom and dad is spending crazy amounts of money on weird things. It's like, you may not agree with those choices. You may not think that those are their best choices, but people are allowed to make those choices. And as Pam was saying earlier, the thing we really need to remember is when someone is appointed a guardian, you are taking away an individual's liberties to do certain things. And that's a very, very serious matter. So judges and courts that are doing this really want to make sure that it's not just, well, they didn't make the best decisions. That's not the bar. The bar is that they're incapable of really making those decisions before we take those rights away.
Thank you for
And,
explaining
and
that.
keeping in mind, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, and keeping in mind that there are illnesses and disorders that will never improve. So somebody gambling or somebody who has a mental illness who has tremendous potential for getting better if they take their medicine. Not that that's an easy process, but it's a very in the court's eyes than when you say this person has had only 6 years, and we all know it's not going to get better. Very different thought process for the judge.
Well, you talk about guardianship taking away someone's rights. Besides the right to make a decision about maybe where they want to live, what other rights are taken away from them, Pam?
So there's a list, and every guardianship is different. So there are plenary guardianships where everything away, and I'll give you a list in a moment, where guardianship may only take one thing away, or 2 or 3, but there are sometimes 10 things checked or crossed out. So it's the right to make medical decisions, the right to determine your environment, your friendships, your associations, the right to make medical decisions, residence, I don't know what I said already, right to make financial decisions, right to apply for public benefits. And all of those are to the guardian, but there are other rights like the right to vote, right to drive, the right to work. Those things might be as well. And of course, I can work for you. So those are not delegable to the guardian. Typically, people maintain their social environment. Typically, guardians encourage families and friends to stay in touch with wards, people. About half and half the residence issue. So that varies a lot. Almost all the time, we get the medical piece. But I do have wards who make their own medical decisions, and we handle all their all of their bills, determine where they live. I mean, there's a collaboration, right? So if the judge has made a determination that she make her medical decisions, so we know already she has a level of understanding. So there's a lot of collaboration and discussion in making decisions for someone else. As long as they're verbal and alert, it's a collaboration.
And that's
we have
good. I like
the power.
Yes, the collaboration, a balance of power, so to speak, because you want someone to feel that they're still involved in their own decision making up to the point where they're able to do that. It gives them that self-esteem and makes them feel good about their life. So I like that word collaboration. That's really great. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be giving away a book. So if you're listening or watching and you don't have the 36-hour day book, which I highly recommend, get a piece of paper and pencil. When we come back, you'll find out how you can get it for free. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on caregiversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Communities. Arden Courts has about 50 memory care assisted living communities throughout the United States, 10 of them here in the state of Florida, where I am. And they are a leader in the care of people with memory loss, but they also care for you, the family caregiver, by providing you with lots of resources, support groups, educational seminars, and today, this book. This is a wonderful resource for caregivers. It's called the 36-Hour Day Book, written by Dr. Peter Rabins and Nancy Mace. It's a great book for giving caregivers a lot of wonderful information, resources explaining the different kinds of dementias, tips, advice, scenarios. You can read it cover to cover, or you can pick and choose the topic that is most current for you at the moment. And this book is absolutely free just because you're listening or watching this program today. If you would like to have this book, all you have to do is request it via email. And the email address is delray@arden-courts.com. That's DELRAY at Arden, ARDEN dash courts, COURTS.com. Delray@arden-courts.com. Let them have your name, your phone number, your address. Tell them that you heard about the free offer for the 36-Hour Day book on the Caregiver Solution Info Show, and they'll be very happy to mail one right off to you. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. If you know somebody that could use this book and they don't have it, get it for them and make a wonderful gift, and you'd be helping a caregiver in need. So my special guests today are with me. We're talking about Medicaid planning, guardianship, making sure that you plan for your end of life. And Pam Weiner is with Jewish Family Services in Palm Beach County. She's our PhD in social welfare, and she is a registered guardian with the Alpert Jewish Family Services. And Amy Dow, she is an attorney, and she is been in the practice of helping and counseling with families for over 25 years, as well as Pam that much. So we have the best of the best right here on the program. And Amy is talking about elder law, what documents that someone needs, and what happens when you don't get the documents that you need. So a little bit more about guardianship, Pam. You talked about, what happens, the process. It can be very drawn out. It can be expensive even. We didn't even talk about the court costs that are all involved with that. So the bottom line is you want to try to avoid guardianship if all possible, is what I hear you saying. And you want to go see someone like Amy who can get you all those documents ahead of time, which will then help prevent you from having to go the guardianship route. We do the best we can. Sometimes there's glitches, and sometimes things, might still come up with issues, but it's all about planning. And when we're talking about planning, Amy, one of your specialties is planning not only for estate planning, but planning for end of life. And if someone needs maybe some help with how to care for somebody, because care is very, very expensive. Not everybody has access to, an unlimited pot of money. Not everyone maybe has a long-term care policy that they took out way before they got sick, and they could use that for care. So it comes out of their pocket. But what if that's not even possible? What happens, and how should people prepare for end of life care when they're concerned about the financial piece?
So for us, it's not so much end of life care, because sometimes I think of end of life as a hospice situation. So I just want to clarify, because words, really conjure up a lot of images. Well, I think when we're talking about this, it's more of a long-term care solution with government benefits. And so primarily we work with the Medicaid benefit to help pay for care. I mean, Medicaid means a lot of things to different people. There's many different programs. But in this context, this is how, if you have somebody that needs to come to the house, if you need an aide for a certain number of hours a week, if you need to be in an assisted living facility, or even if you need to escalate your care and be in a skilled nursing facility, there are Medicaid programs that will help pay for that care. Here's the thing though. There's asset limits and income limits. And one of the things that people are afraid of is that they say, well, I have too much money. And really the best way to describe this is sort of like lawyers who help people with tax sheltering. It's kind of a similar thing, that Medicaid planning is a way to move your assets around from countable to non-countable in a way that Medicaid will say, okay, we know that that pot of money still exists, but we're not going to count it and we're going to give you the benefit anyway. And that's really what the Medicaid lawyers are best at, is helping people go through their income and assets and figure out how we can rearrange them in a way that you're not completely impoverished, but that you can still get the government benefit. And the best time to do that is in advance. And that's, I think, the theme of today is you can educate yourself, you can do documents, you can do planning to put yourself in a better situation later. And even if it's already later, there's often ways that we can still work with people to help them get government benefits. It's really up to you how much detail you want me to go into, so I'm going to let you ask me if you want more information about the particular programs.
Well, when should people start planning for Medicaid if they're thinking about the care? Like you said, it doesn't have to be end of life, because obviously, there's hospice that can come in, and that is another benefit through Medicare. But there are legal requirements when you say that you have to plan ahead. And I know that a lot of the laws recently have changed in the last few years when it comes to Medicaid planning. So can you talk about something called the look back period? A lot of people seem to be
Yes.
concerned or confused about the look back period. What does that mean?
So I'm glad you asked that, because that is probably the number one misunderstood concept in Medicaid planning. So remember I said that we can move assets around and income around in ways that Medicaid says that's fine, okay? One of the things that you cannot do is when you apply for Medicaid, Medicaid will look back 5 years. What is Medicaid looking for? Medicaid is looking for whether you've given money away, meaning that maybe you gave your kids $20,000 or $30,000 and it was a gift. So Medicaid takes the position, well, if you had that much money to give away, you should have saved it and used it for your care. So what happens is they look back 5 years for those gifts, and if you've given money away to that extent, there's a mathematical formula they use to determine a penalty period that you will be ineligible for benefits. Even if you have given money away, there's ways to sort of cure that gift, which is why you should still always talk to an elder law attorney. But that's what's commonly misunderstood about that 5-year look back. They're looking for gifting, things where you don't get something back in return. It's very important to recognize, though, you can spend your money on yourself, your care. You can retrofit your home. You can pay your caregivers. There's lots of things you can spend your money on as long as there's that fair market exchange. There's even a concept for Medicaid planning where you can pay family members. And I use kind of air quotes for paying them. It's really a way to exchange some assets and recognize their time. But you have to have a contract in place in order to do that. And that's something you would see an elder law attorney for.
So it used to be a 3-year look back. Now it's 5. You think it's going to increase anytime soon, or why do you think Medicaid made that change in a look back period? Is it because too many people were maybe delving into the pot too soon, or why do you think that's changed?
Yeah, I don't really hear too many issues with the 5-year look back on the chopping block of being changed or extended. There's other things that do cause us concern in other areas. One of the things we've been hearing about is there's an option for a pooled special needs trust. It really starts getting very technical, but yeah, some of these things are always subject to the legislature changing them, which is why, keeping in touch with an elder law attorney, not waiting until it's too late. I really try to do a lot of education with seniors in general. Like The idea is that at every stage of life, you have different goals, right? And if you're a young family person, you want to see an estate planning attorney because you want to make sure your children are provided for, that you have a guardian for your children. God forbid something should happen to you. And as we get older, that shifts, right? Hopefully our children are grown and they're doing well and taking care of themselves. And now the focus is more on me. So as those life changes happen, those are good times to at least consult with an attorney and see what your options are and what you should be planning for. Even if the lawyer says, you know what, check back in 5 years, but you need to constantly be aware of the changing laws and your changing goals, and checking in at those different phases, because there are things we can do in advance that you need to be educated about.
That's great advice, Amy. I know that you hail originally from New York, and we're talking about checking to make sure that you keep abreast of Medicaid and the different laws, which leads me to ask you, Medicare is pretty much the same all over the country, but when it comes to Medicaid, talk about how it's so different state to state.
That's another one of my favorite lines, because I get so many calls from the Northerners, the kids up north, about their parents down south, and they've all spoken to their neighbors and their neighbors' friends, and they think they know what's going on. But New York is actually one of the good examples of being extremely different from from Florida. I mentioned before that in Florida we can use contracts to transfer assets to children. It's called a personal service contract. They don't have that in New York. In Florida, we have what's called a ladybird deed, which is a way to protect a home from probate. And so there's all these different tools that we have down here that make Medicaid planning a little bit easier, actually, than some other states. And so for people that are just coming here, it's a good thing to check in with. Again, doing a consultation really doesn't cost very much with most lawyers, and you can just learn so much. I think Pam has been wanting to add something, so I'm going to pause and let Pam chime in.
You reminded me of two things, Amy, that I wanted to mention on your behalf. Just as through different phases of your documents will likely change because your priority change, as you get older, you sometimes the people that you designate leave the earth. And one thing that Amy and I have both found is that, every 5 years or so, probably, if you have your power of attorney documents in place, especially with COVID and your healthcare documents, a lot of people that you may have been able to rely on past may be frail, unavailable, and so it's really important everything is current and to check in with an attorney from time to time. And I wanted to make the other point I wanted to make, and Amy and I have talked about this a lot. Things work, and in guardianship, other things can work. They're not legal. We find, in the drawer, we find a piece of paper, and it'll say, I want my brother to have my watch. I don't want of it. My sister knows where my gold coins are, and we get these things and we try to follow this little scribble and do whatever the guy has on the piece of. But if there's an argument or the sister doesn't really know where the coins are, we're out of luck to get those to the next generation. So those informants do not hold sway if things go to court. And I just wanted to, again, emphasize how important they are. And then the third last thing that you triggered me on was to say that service has a special needs pooled trust. And so if people need to shelter, some funds available. Just wanted to put that out.
Very good point. You could tell that you two have worked together and can really complement each other. So, Pam, when you have a ward that you're guardian over and they end up needing Medicaid, then that would be, I assume, an opportunity where you could work with Amy to help get all of that taken care of. So you guys are part of a team, and when when we're talking about caregivers and we're talking about caregivers and taking care of others, we talk about a team, putting together your team. And your team consists of, your medical professionals, your legal professionals, the people that are helping you, make decisions, the guardianship, your social services. All of these people are part of a team. And I think it's real important to know who your team consists of. And if you're missing a part of that team, then, go ahead and fill in that gap, because I think this is what we're talking about is all the planning that we're doing. And planning is planning who are your team members. And like Pam said, making sure that it's up to date, and making sure that team player is still eligible and still can be part of that team. Something may have happened and you have to, draft somebody else in, just, like the NFL, you lose a team member and you've got to draft somebody else in. And it's a process, right? It's an ongoing fluid process. And I think we would all agree upon that. So we're going to take our last break and be back, and then you can find out how you can get in touch with these lovely professionals to get your questions answered. We'll be right back.
Feelings of depression, isolation, and frustration are common among persons living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's common among those who care for them, too. It takes a lot of patience and courage. It also takes knowing when you can no longer do it alone. At Arden Courts, memory care is all we do. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Don't let guilt keep you from making the right decision. Visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
You are listening to your host, Marcia Teal, an Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert on caregiversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Joining me today are two wonderful professionals. We're talking about Medicaid planning, guardianship, legal documents, things that caregivers need to think about, and what everybody needs to think about for their life going forward. Sometimes we can just go through life and not think about that we might need those types of things, and they're legal issues that everyone needs to pay attention to, whether you're a caregiver or not. And so Pam Weiner, she's with Alpert Jewish Family Services of Palm Beach County, registered guardian. And Pam, talk a little bit for just a second about some of the services that Alpert Jewish Family Services provides in addition to the guardianship program that people could tap into.
Okay, well, help people across the lifespan going through difficult times in their life. We have mentoring programs for children and tree and testing for schools and clinical testing and things like that for kids. And then we go up through through the ages. So we have a strong counseling program, a food pantry for our community. We have long-term care programs to provide case management for Holocaust survivor, older adults. Have a domestic violence prevention treatment type of program as well. We do a lot of things over there. I'm trying to think. We have a music and memory program for our clients, which you're probably familiar with, and working with people with dementia, which is lovely. I'm trying to go through the building now and we have a referral.
Well, needless to say, there is so much to tap into, right? You just have so many wonderful, wonderful programs, probably too many even to mention.
A lot
here.
of volunteer opportunities, some with stipend as well.
Great. And so how can someone contact your organization to find out more or to contact you about the guardianship program?
Whatever's bothering you, you can call 561-684-1991, and we'll try to help you get through whatever and if it's a guardianship issue in particular, that call will.
Wonderful. Okay.
Absolutely.
And also with us is Amy Dow. Amy's an attorney, and she is an attorney who specializes in helping families through Medicaid, probate, guardianship, all these kinds of things, especially with her extra counseling background we talked about. So Amy is very versed in also helping families as well as Pam. Amy, can you please let us know if someone heard something that you talked about and they'd like to know more, how can they contact you?
Well, my firm has an incredible website as a resource. There's videos and documents and phone numbers. It's elderneedslaw.com. elderneedslaw.com. My partner and I are both on there. You can reach us if you want to call. The number is 561-725-5670, but really the easiest way is just to go to elderneedslaw.com. If I have 1 minute, I just want to say something I think is crucial for caregivers to know about. That if you think the person you're caring for is not capable of signing these documents, you might want to think twice, because the rule is a person can still execute a power of attorney, a will, and other such things in a lucid moment. Okay, so if you have somebody that's going in and out, but usually in the morning at 10 o'clock, they're pretty sharp, we can sign documents with them at that time, even if an hour later they don't remember what they did. So just keep in mind, if you're working with someone who has those windows, we can work with those windows. Thank you so much for having me today. I enjoyed it so much. And Pam, it's always a pleasure going back and forth with you.
Well, I thank you, both of you. Thank you both, because, and Amy, that was a great point, because I've seen that happen where people are in a lucid moment. They absolutely know what they want. They are in agreement, and, because of the dementia, and sometimes they're fading in and out, things can change. But I'm so happy you brought that up, because I've actually witnessed that, and it just turned out to be the best thing for the whole situation. So I want to thank you both for being here today. You were both so informational, and education is great for everyone, for caregivers. So caregivers, step up, get your documents, get everything early. If you're not a caregiver, get it before you need it, so you don't have to get the guardianship. But if you need anything else, you can certainly go to the other organizations and get all the social services through Alpert Jewish Family Services in Palm Beach County. Thank you, guys. Also, don't forget, if you want to get the 36-hour day book, all you have to do is send an email to delray@arden-courts.com, and they'll be happy to mail you one with your name, address, phone number. It's an awesome resource. Thank you, guys. I hope to see you again. Keep up the good work. Thanks for being here. And thank you to everyone listening and watching today. We'll be back next Tuesday with another wonderful program, 6 o'clock Eastern Time on caregiversolutions.info or on your iHeartRadio app and local Southeast Florida. So until next time, take care, stay safe, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Amy.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teal. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver Solutions.